Hey guys, welcome in. It is Brad with College SportsCast. We are here to do week 26 of the Big Fuss Show.
Can I please have your attention?
What's all the commotion around here?
What are you talking about?
Let them yap at you.
It's actually very exciting.
Hey guys, welcome in. It is the Big Fuss Show with College SportsCast. Got John Hammonds here with me. What's up, Hammonds?
What's up, man?
So if you are on Facebook with us, you can help support us by sending stars, or you can subscribe to our page now. It's only 99 cents a month. It does give you your own chat just for subscribers and your own page just for subscribers. Again, it does help us make a little bit of money to help continue to make these shows and content for you guys. All right, John, I'm a little bit under the weather, so I'm probably going to let you do a whole lot of the talking.
That's fine.
I don't want to get to coughing. All right. So it's Tuesday night. And Tuesday nights, we try to do a little bit of debating.
Yeah.
I probably won't be doing a whole lot of debating. But I do got to ask you this, John. So we'll start out with this. So the SEC and the Big Ten are kind of leading a push to expand the college football playoffs. What do you think?
We saw the first edition of the playoffs this past year, with the 12 teams. I like that. Now there's talk about adding more teams for the expanded playoff and, opportunity, a chance to compete with the big boys, all those type things. Are we sure we want to do that, though? To me, it's not going to benefit the little guy. That's a lot what J.D. Pickle said earlier this week. Not that we don't want it to, but it's not going to benefit the little guy. There's definitely some people that aren't favoring that. We saw a lot of blowouts, Brad, in the college football playoff. No one wants to see that. It's really, honestly, it's tough to know where to go from here. You got the Big Ten, you got the SEC that are probably the biggest conferences in football, and then you kind of add in the Big 12 to that range, and then you add the little guys, like I said. Who knows what's going to happen with the college football playoff, Brad? But it was clear during the college football playoffs that there probably needs to be some changes. The best teams didn't get to play a game in front of their home fans, I don't think. Alabama was one. There was a couple more teams that were ranked higher in the polls than teams that actually got a better seeding than most of them. Some of them didn't make sense. And I think, yes, there needs to be change. I just don't know what that option and what that
I'll be honest with you. I don't like the expansion. 12 was pretty decent. I kind of think 12 might be too many, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the fact that the best of the best play for the college football championship. And to me, when you start letting in 4-loss Big Ten teams or 4-loss SEC teams, who cares?
Yeah, I agree with you. And the thing, too, to me, you had some of the Big Ten this year, like the SEC, they kind of dominated the stretch. Ohio State, Penn State, you had SMU in there. That was part of the ACC, but you had Indiana, Georgia, Texas. You had all the big schools. Now, I kind of look at it from a college basketball perspective. The college basketball, the way they do things, the tournament, I think they do it the right way. Everybody gets a chance, but not everybody gets to be in. It's sort of like with the bubble. Somebody's going to be left out, but at least there's stats and there's other metrics to kind of back it up.
John, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but here's what the SEC and the Big Ten is suggesting. So they want to guarantee 4 spots each for the SEC and the Big Ten, 2 for the Big 12, 2 for the ACC, and then 1 to 3 at-large teams, depending on whether it's 14 or 16. And if Notre Dame is inside that top 14, they automatically get in too. So that means you have no at-large teams.
No, to me, I don't think that's right. I mean, because you saw this year, Indiana gets dominated by Notre Dame. SMU got whipped against Penn State. Like, you're putting in teams that, from a record standpoint, they do belong, but from a competitive way, they just simply didn't. They just simply didn't belong. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. This Big Ten SEC meeting is going to shape the future of the college football playoff.
Well, that's what they're pushing for. And, okay, I didn't put it in here, but 1 group of 5 spot is also added to that. But that basically means you're going to get a whole bunch of 4-loss Big 12, ACC, Big 10, SEC teams, and 1 smaller school from mid-tier conference.
Well, and even if you look at it from last year's top 25, okay, you had Texas and Penn State. They would have received byes in the current 12-team format. Ohio State would have hosted probably Arizona State instead of Tennessee. To me, this is the area where the changes come into play. Like Boise State earned $8 million just for the Mountain West by getting to the Fiesta Bowl quarterfinal.
Right.
How do you say it? There's understandable that most teams would often be so far down the committee's rankings, they're simply ticketed to go on the road to be a one and done at some blue blood in a first round game, basically. And to be honest, it's all about money too. It's not, the bottom line is it's money, revenue, the appeal for certain games.
Look, our team's in the SEC.
Well, when you look at the bowls,
guaranteed 4 spots might help Ole Miss or South Carolina or Kentucky if they ever get there. I'm not saying that if it's my team that I wouldn't be okay with it. I'm not saying that. However, as a fan of college football, I'm just not interested in watching an 8-4 South Carolina team get in and get smoked.
I agree.
I'm just not interested in that. Or Kentucky for that.
Well, and you look at SMU.
Listen, I'm a Kentucky fan. If Kentucky was to sneak in, John, but then they have to play the top overall seed, and they get beat 42-10 in the playoffs, is that fun?
No, it's not.
Is that fun? Is that fun for a fan to watch?
Not to me, no. I agree with Bill. 8 would have been fine. 12, I think, is just too much because you look at the teams that got there. Like we said earlier, we had Indiana, SMU. They never really competed. At some point, better teams have got to find a better way to get in. Like the Alabamas. I'll be honest with you. I'd have rather had Alabama in as had Indiana in because at least Alabama would have competed in that playoff. Indiana never even showed up. And yes, they had a good record, but who did they really beat in the Big
SMU
Ten?
was worse.
SMU was a lot worse, yes. Indiana basically Indiana got in because of their record. And they really didn't beat anybody. So,
Yeah. I mean, all that's true. Now,
at the end of the day,
this,
no.
part of this in that SEC Big Ten meeting that's fixing to happen, if they do agree to all this, part of that agreement would be that the SEC goes to a 9-game schedule, just like the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
And there would be some kind of set matchups, whether that be 4 matchups a year between the SEC and the Big Ten and out of conference. So if you did 4 a year and you switch teams, like once every 4 years, your team would have to play an out of conference game with the Big Ten team.
Not a bad choice there. I mean,
now, but that means you get 9 conference games and that Big Ten team.
Yeah, and you kind of, and what you do, you probably replace, say you look at Kentucky's schedule, you probably knock out one of those games that they normally win, like normally cupcake game, they knock one of those out and put the Big Ten team in there. I think it helps a little bit, certain teams, and I think it don't benefit other teams as well.
It would help with strength of schedule.
It would.
I will say
but
that.
Can you compete in that kind of – can a team like, I don't know, say a Kentucky, teams down the ladder, like Northwestern.
I think
Rutgers.
it waters down the regular season and the playoffs.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah.
And Bill says he thinks they were better at 4. It was more fun.
For me, these extra playoff games, get your friends, cook out, and enjoy a beer, you see.
Yeah. Steven, do you think Notre Dame should have
to be in a conference?
I mean, listen, it is when TV networks are giving you your own deal and you don't have to split it with others, I get it.
Yeah.
I would do it too.
Because Notre Dame has their own TV deal with NBC.
Yeah. I mean, when you get your own deal and you don't have to split it with others, that's what they get. So
yeah, Notre Dame proved it this year. They didn't make the plays necessary to beat Ohio State, but they did prove it this year. Compared to the last 3 or 4 years that they had.
Honestly, I wish that they would just have to join the ACC, to be honest, because they're in the ACC and everything.
Yeah, might as well. I mean, might as well jump in there. But overall,
they have a pact. I think 4 of their games are with ACC teams already.
But overall, Brad, I think this will be a good thing. I think for some teams, and I think for some, it could backfire a little bit.
So a certain amount of SEC Big Ten out of conference games each year added to a schedule, added to an already 9-game SEC schedule, it's going to be tough for some of these teams if it happens.
Yes.
Now, I will say this. Teams like Indiana, who had a terrible out of conference or terrible strength of schedule, maybe that'll help a little bit, having to play a SEC team. But overall, I'm not a big fan of expanding it beyond the 12. I really I think it should have been 8 Really.
I agree. I think it should be.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
I told you. All right. Basketball.
Yeah, I can do this.
Top 16s were revealed.
Yeah. I'll start out with the men's first since they was revealed Saturday. Let's see here. I got to pull it up. Didn't know you were sick. Let's see here. Top 16. Here we go.
John and I both have articles on stadiumrant.com. I have one about the women. He has one about the men on the 16-team reveal.
Yeah.
Top 16.
I got a Vandy article, a Kentucky article out too. So that was yesterday. So okay. So the overall number 1 seed was Auburn in the South. They're the 1 seed. The second, I'm guessing the second one was Duke. The third one was Florida in the West region. Or no, wait a minute. Alabama was second in the Midwest. Duke was 3 in the East. 4 was Florida in the West. The 2 seeds, Tennessee was in the East. Texas A&M was in the South. Purdue was in the Midwest, and Houston was in the West. The 3 seeds was Iowa State in the Midwest. 10 was Kentucky in the West. 11 in the South was Wisconsin, and 12 was Arizona in the East. Now, the 4 seeds, 13 was Texas Tech in the South. Michigan was 14 in the West. Kansas was 15th in the Midwest. And 16 was St. John's in the East.
Let me ask you about Kentucky. They were 10, and then Saturday night they let Texas come back and win late. Do you think that's too high for where they currently are?
Probably not. I say that because they're quad 1 wins. They still have, a really great resume. They need to win tomorrow night. They need to beat Vanderbilt, I think, just to get a little confidence win. Now they do got a tough game coming up against Alabama, and then they go on the road to Oklahoma. An Oklahoma team that just got absolutely humiliated on the road tonight at Florida. An Oklahoma team that is not playing good basketball. An Oklahoma team that is basically dead. Let's just be honest. And Kentucky needs to take advantage of this road game, which it won't be easy because we haven't played good on the road. But Oklahoma is another winnable game, like Texas. How we come out, how Butler's going to get healthy, how Carr is a shell of himself. Lately, he's not looked like the same Carr we had that when we played Duke. Now you got Jackson Robinson.
You know who Carr reminds me of? Maybe y'all remember Trey Mitchell from last year.
Yeah, he's a shell of himself.
Trey Mitchell played really good, hurt his back, and then was a different player towards the end of the season.
Now, I will say, out of this group, that I like the most is St. John's. They're the top dog in the Big East. Year 2 under Rick Pitino. They have a really interesting resume, Brad. They're 21-4. From a metric standpoint, St. John's would probably be sitting on the bubble. But like others, I've got them as a 4 seed in my own little thing. I think it's pretty much said that Rick Pitino is probably going to be coach of the year in the Big East. he's doing some really great things. They beat a good Creighton team Sunday. And then you got the whole Duke where they're at. From an eye standpoint, they're probably the best team in the country. They got some things in their resume that kind of worry you, but they do have some elite wins. Arizona and Auburn. The Auburn game was at Cameron. You don't go into Cameron and win most of the time. Usually it's a tough place to play. Now they did beat Auburn, but Auburn's got, I think, 15, 16 wins against the quad one, which is impressive.
Something crazy.
I don't think they're going to be knocked off the number one overall. But I do think compared to Alabama and Florida and Tennessee, Duke is probably the second best one seed in the in this region, in this bracket reveal. So, and then you got the SEC, Brad. Overall, what was it? 4 of the top 6 was SEC teams.
Yeah.
Just impressive season so far for the SEC. 6 of the top 16 and 1 or 2 others are in for a top 4 seed. This is a really big historic dominance by this league. We could have 14 teams bid-wise to the SEC, to college, to the March Madness. And to me, that's impressive.
We could, but I think it's going to wind up being 12 or 13.
Yep. And on the women's side, let's see. The women's side was
UCLA was number 1.
You had the 1. You had UCLA as 1. The second was South Carolina. 3 was Texas. And 4 was Notre Dame. Now, the 2 seeds were LSU, NC State, UConn, and USC. 3 seeds were Duke, TCU, North Carolina, and Kansas State. The 4 seeds were Oklahoma, Ohio State, and Kentucky.
Tennessee.
Right now, in Tennessee, yes. Right now, to me, for the women's side of things, Texas, to me, is the best team in the country, Brad. They beat 3 top 10 teams in a matter of a week. They beat Kentucky, South Carolina, and LSU. Just impressive.
I think it's the best stretch of any team on the women's side this year.
Oh, and you got Rory Harmon, Madison Booker, Oldacre. This is an impressive basketball team.
Preston, Lee, Jones, they're tough.
Yeah, now, to be fair, UCLA, Notre Dame's going to be there. Notre Dame's got Hidalgo, Lauren Betts for UCLA. Then you got South Carolina.
Earlier in the season, Notre Dame beat Texas. That's one of their losses.
Yeah. And then you kind of got, South Carolina still there. One of my favorites still to compete. UConn's playing at a really high level. Kansas State is playing really, really good. USC with Juju Watkins is doing really good things, and even Kentucky. But right now, Kentucky is really, really having a tough time as of late. Losses to Texas. They lost to A&M right there early. There was a couple games there that probably knocked them out of the 3 seed range. But overall, he's done a really great job, Kenny Brooks, with what he's done. There's a couple teams that are outside the top 16, I think, that are pretty good teams. You got Alabama, Ole Miss, West Virginia's in that group. Alabama, like I said, Baylor. But I think when it all comes down to it, with the women's side of things, I think you notice it in the women's side of things. Usually, the top 10 best teams usually make it to that Elite Eight. It's a little bit different than the men. The men sometimes have an upset here or there, but you don't see a lot of that in the women's. Now you'll see a first round or second round game, but a lot of times you see a lot of the top dogs advance past the Elite Eight into the Final Four. But the women's got a slew of teams this year that could possibly win it all.
I still say it's probably about 7 teams that could win it all. I think there's probably 12 to 15, 16, 18 teams that could make it to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I do.
Kentucky, I'm proud of them. I'm proud of them being in there. They were 13th in this list. Had a great season so far. They've got a few big games coming up. They're 9-3 in the SEC. 4th, hanging on to that double bye spot right now. Proud of the way they done and the way they have played this year for the most part. Had a couple of rough games there against good opponents, defensive opponents. Texas is one of the best. So,
something that didn't get brought up about Notre Dame being the last 1 seed, I think a lot of that had to do with their losses at the Cayman Islands. They lost to TCU early in the year, and they lost to unranked Utah. I think that's hurting them a little bit when it comes to that last 1 seed.
But they actually, on Monday, was the number 1 seed in the AP poll, or number 1 team in the AP poll.
Number 1 team, yeah. Notre Dame's resume has been really, really good. It's just those 2 knocks on their schedule. Ivy's group is probably one of the best in the country. They have one of the top 5 offenses. They're just, I think, 3 teams in college basketball to shoot over 50% from the field. South Bend, I'm telling you, they play ball down there in South Bend. This is a really good Notre Dame team. USC has the opportunity to go up. They upset UCLA last week. They still got a good draw. I think they'll see UCLA at least again with their conference tournament. They got a home game against Michigan State. The no-show on the road against Iowa, I think, is the one thing that's holding them back. Now, if Juju Watkins keeps playing like she did against UCLA, she might just lead them to the national championship. Juju's playing at a really high level right now. Now, she had struggled at times during the season, but I think she's kind of figuring it out. And then I kind of want to go into NC State, Brad. They're a fun 2 seed. While they got some nice wins, they beat Duke. They beat a good FSU team on the road. They're still lacking some of the quality wins, but they're not going to lack much opportunities. They got North Carolina coming up, I think, Georgia Tech. Then you throw a game in there against Notre Dame. NC State is a team to watch going down the stretch. I think they're a really fun team down there in Raleigh. I think they're going to be in the mix to possibly go to the Sweet 16, maybe even the Elite Eight. Just like
the men's, the SEC had 6 teams in this top 16 here, just like on the men's side. So the SEC is leading both the men's and the women's.
And by the way, I'm watching ball on a separate television here. Kansas is down to 18 points. Kansas is falling apart, man.
Yeah. Well, kick John off there for a second. He'll find his way back. He was talking about Kansas. Kansas is not in the top 16. Shane says BYU.
I was talking men, Brad, the men for Kansas. They're in the top 16. They're losing to BYU on the road by 18. Since that bracket reveal, they've lost to Utah, and they're about to lose possibly to BYU. Not good if you're a Kansas fan.
I agree.
A team that has controlled the Big 12, the last 5-6 years? Just a rough year this year, to say the least.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Dawn Staley lost a couple of huge streaks that she had just in the past 9 or 10 days. One was a 57-game SEC regular season streak. The other was a 71-game home winning streak. 2 huge streaks snapped. I just wanted to give you a little platform to talk about the run that she's had at South Carolina and the 2 teams that snapped their streaks.
Unbelievable, man. Just hard to believe that streak got snapped. It's since she took over for South Carolina, she's done some amazing things for the Gamecocks. They just didn't show up against UConn. The effort wasn't there. Joyce Edwards, I think, had 17. She tried to lead them. Asa Fudd had 28 in that game for UConn. If Fudd and Beckers gets going, UConn's hard to top. But she had you got to think about this, Brad. She had a 43-game win streak snapped by UCLA. They also had a 17-game win streak that was snapped by Texas. That's hard to do, y'all. In any league, NBA, men's college basketball,
57 straight SEC regular season wins is insane.
It's tough, and to lose that many, to win that many, and then to lose one, it just it's just tough. And Dawn Staley will regroup. She'll figure it out how to get things going back again. This is a really good South Carolina team. They'll figure things out. They got a really good team still, and they don't lose at home. South Carolina hardly ever loses at the Colonial Center, so that's a very rare first for South Carolina. And I think they'll figure it out and they'll get better.
They had not lost at home since 2020, 71 straight games.
And I think this loss will help them down the road, and I think it'll make them better as a team. I still think South Carolina is in that mix to be a Final Four national championship team. One loss on the road at home in the middle of February, I think, is not going to really bother Dawn Staley that much, as long as if she could win a national championship. So, props to Texas, props to UConn. They done what they had to do, and they broke some records here, and props to them.
All right. One more that I got to ask you about on the women's side, Mikayla Blakes. If you guys don't know who she is killing it in the SEC. So she had 53. She had 53 in a game about 2 weeks ago. On Sunday, she dropped 55. Not only is that a freshman record nationally, 55 is also the most points scored by a women's player in SEC history. By the way, Mikayla Blakes is a freshman.
She is. She's putting up some gaudy numbers. Breaking her own record.
She dropped double nickel on Sunday.
Brad, it is rare in any college sport, even NBA, that a record is broken twice in 1 year by the same player. She set a SEC freshman single game record like you said, at 53. Scored 55 against Auburn. The 55 wasn't just what it was most scored by a freshman in NCAA history. Ella Deladon, I think, scored that many, 54 for Delaware. I think in a tournament game. Or no, it might have been a regular season game. She's averaging, I think, close to 22 points per game. First division
by the
player.
way, in the SEC opener, she dropped 36. So
well, she's
3 times she's been above 36, and twice above 50.
Yeah, and she's also the first Division I women's scope player to register 50 point games in a season. And I think a couple did it twice during the 16 season. I can't remember who it was, but Blakes is right on that edge, I think, to possibly win maybe Player of the Year, maybe SEC Player of the Year, maybe even Freshman of the Year. So unbelievable season Mikayla Blakes is putting together, and not to mention her sidekick Pierre. Pierre is good as well.
She's a sophomore, but Blakes, the thing about her, she's at Vandy, if you guys don't know, but the thing about her is in the women's game, she's going to be there for at least another 2 or 3 years. I mean, at 22, if you've had your 22nd birthday, you technically can go to the WNBA. But with the money that these kids are making now, it makes much more sense to stay in college and finish your college for these girls.
She was added to the Don Staley Award, the late season watch list. So impressive to have your name in that regard.
Do I think she's going to win National Player of the Year? No, but I think. But I do think that she will make an All-American team, and I also think that she will probably be named the Freshman of the Year, and that's saying something because Sarah Strong from UConn and Joyce Edwards from South Carolina have both been talked about as Player of the Year, Freshman Player of the Year so far this year, and Blakes is coming on strong.
She is playing really good basketball.
I mean, when you can break 53 and 55 in games, and she's hit a couple of game winners as well.
Yep.
All right. This is kind of the last one that we're going to do tonight. I'm trying to make this a little bit shorter, so I'm not talking my head off tonight. But Coach of the Year candidates. We haven't done a Coach of the Year thing really for a little while, men's and women's. I just want to kind of to hit this, John, for you and talk a little bit on the men's and women's side. We'll start on the men's side.
Probably for me, one would be Pat Kelsey. He inherited Brad a dumpster fire from Kenny Payne, and has got Louisville going possibly to the big dance in his first year. That alone probably puts him in the conversation for it.
I think he's in. Isn't he 20-6 or something like that?
And Louisville was dealt with some season-ending injuries. Kashawn Pryor was one. Corin Johnson got hurt. And to do that, it for me is even more impressive. I think you got to look at a guy like Rick Pitino, 21-3. They've done it in classic Pitino fashion. Play disruptive defense and play with a lot of effort on the boards. Been remarkable. RJ Lewis has been really good for them. They've blossomed. He's got Zuby Okafor, some role players in the Big East in their second years in that system. And then I think you got to talk about a couple other guys like Todd Golden.
How about Bruce Pearl?
Bruce Pearl is one. He's built Auburn into a very good group of basketball players.
I don't think he's getting enough love, Bruce Pearl.
Well, he inherited Janiyah Broome. You know, he moved Broome to power forward, and took to Todd Pettiford and put him at the point, and I think that's helped Auburn a little bit. Now Broome sometimes played guard at times, bringing the ball up the floor, but I think him moving him around and moving some of the guys around, I think he's kind of gelled this team together to where they bring it to the forefront to how good they really can be, and they're hard to just knock around. They're a really good team. Maybe Mark Pope would be another one. His first year, he's beat Duke, Louisville, knocked off Tennessee twice, beat Mississippi State, who just beat A&M tonight. A big win for the Bulldogs. He beat a good Texas A&M team, beat his rival Louisville. So I think he's in that group. But I'm going to give you one that I love, and I don't think he'll win it, but I think he'll be one of the tops. It's Dennis Gates from Missouri. No one in the country, I don't think, to me, has ever turned around an 0-19 team and then yet again took them back to the tournament. They was 8-24 last year. They added Mark Mitchell, a really big piece. I think he came from Duke. Tony Perkins. They built a lot on they had a lot of returning guys. Beat Florida. They beat Kansas. Beat Ole Miss. Added Caleb Grill, a star veteran from Iowa State, which he's having a really good year for them. And I think, they're probably looking at a top seed come March. And then you kind of got the guys that like Mark Byington from Vanderbilt, a Matt Painter, Tom Izzo would be another one. A lot of people didn't think Michigan State would be in this position. Now, I thought they would be good, but I didn't never think they would be this good. Jace Richardson has been a really big piece for him. Atkins has been really good. So a lot of those, there's so many you can probably choose from when it comes to ranking the men's side. But those are mine, Brad.
All right. I mean, I just, I agree with some of those that you said there. Looks like we lost him again, but, I agree with some of those that he said. Dennis Gates, spectacular year coming off of 0-18 in the SEC. But I don't think Bruce Pearl gets enough love. I think the job that Patino's done and Kelsey's done is really spectacular as well. So on the women's side, there's a bunch of them really that you can talk about. Ivy at Notre Dame, Vic Schaefer at Texas with the week that he's had and where he's got them.
Yep.
Maybe Kenny Brooks. I mean, 20-4 coming back. Kentucky was at the bottom of the SEC the last 2 years, and the job that he's done.
And possibly, Kim Caldwell from Tennessee would be one.
I would pick Kenny Brooks over Kim Caldwell. The only reason why is because Tennessee has not been at the bottom of the SEC. They've been more in the middle of the pack. Kentucky's been at the bottom. I think what he did getting them into the top 12, 13, 14 is a little bit better job than what Kim Caldwell's done, getting a team that had Jewel Spear and Puckett and a few players returning.
Carol Lawson would be one from Duke. They've had a really good year. She done really good in the transfer market. She pulled some people together.
I mean, we just had a whole conversation about Mikayla Blakes. Let's look at the job that Shay Ralph has done.
Yeah.
Bringing in Mikayla Blakes and Pierre.
Kevin McGuff would be another one. The Ohio State coach. I think he's done really good with Ohio State this year. Shauna Green.
You got to talk about Gottlieb at USC.
Yeah. There's so many.
UCLA.
Terry Morin has actually done a really good job with this Indiana team. They're not as good as they was a year ago, but they're still pretty decent.
Yeah.
She's kind of brought them back from losing their pieces that they lost a year ago. But you could probably go down the line and look at different coaches. But I think Kim Caldwell for me would be one. If Kenny Brooks was not in that mix, I'd probably put Kim Caldwell because, this woman basically put a whole group together, sort of like Mark Pope in a year, like in a month. And she even had a baby and still coached. That says a lot about who she is. So a lot of coaches to look at when you settle down about it.
I mean, right now, maybe Ives or Vic Schaefer.
SEC, Stephen brought up a good point. What conference do you think is the best in women's basketball? It has to be the SEC right now. You got South Carolina, Texas, LSU, Tennessee. Even Kentucky's playing really good at times. Ole Miss, Coach O, that'd be another one.
Oklahoma.
Coach O, what she's done with that group. Madison Scott and them, they're pretty good. I think, like I said, Carol Lawson has done really good with Duke. They're going to be a top seed in March. So impressive resumes from just not from the men's side, but there's a lot of good women coaches too.
All right, John, if you want to run through a scoreboard.
Yeah, let me get to it real quick. The scoreboard. All right, this is from earlier tonight. Toledo beat Ball State 67-66. Iowa beat Central Michigan 84-82. Kent State beat Bowling Green 91-84. Akron beat Northern Illinois 73-63. Western Michigan beat Buffalo 97-64. Eastern Kentucky beat Lipscomb 66-57. North Alabama beat West Georgia 80-62. Queens beat Central Arkansas 89-72. North Florida beat Stetson 79-71. Loyola Chicago beat Davidson 77-69. Pittsburgh beat Syracuse 80-69. Eastern Michigan beat Miami, Ohio 76-66. Bellarmine beat Austin Peay 94-68. Florida Gulf Coast beat Jacksonville 72-56. UConn beat Villanova 66-59. Michigan State beat Purdue 75-66. Mississippi State beat A&M 70-54. Florida beat Oklahoma 85-63. Xavier beat Butler 76-63. Currently ongoing. Halftime, LSU leads South Carolina 41-27. Colorado State trails Nevada 36-33. Boston College trails Virginia Tech trails Boston College at halftime 26-11. Virginia Tech has 11 points at halftime. Not great. BYU leads Kansas 41-24. Almost halftime. Marquette's beating Seton Hall 33-16. Houston leads Arizona State 36-24. Utah Martin trails Tennessee State 40-27. Air Force leads Wyoming 46-40 second half. Halftime, Wisconsin leads Illinois 47-41. Texas Tech trails TCU 64-63, 3 minutes to go, second half. And Iowa State is on the verge of beating Colorado 72-51. And the late game of the night is UCLA, Minnesota, and Fresno State, San Diego State.
Mississippi State beat Texas A&M pretty good tonight.
Yeah, they did.
70-54. And Michigan State beat Purdue. What's going on with Purdue?
Purdue's just going through a little spell. Happens to a lot of teams down the stretch, so we'll see. I was going to say, since Brad's kind of coughing and stuff, I kind of wanted to just let this out. Tomorrow night after the UK game, we're going to do a Kentucky show. We're going to do the men probably first, and then talk about the women. And we're going to do our UK show. Hopefully we come on with a little bit of cheer around us, but unfortunately with players out, you just never know about a game. So
certainly don't. Texas had players out too. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, they did.
And we had a 5-point lead with 3 minutes and 51 seconds on the clock.
So somebody needs to step up tomorrow and make some plays and beat this Vanderbilt team. I mean, they're not great defensively. They're probably one of the worst teams in the conference when it comes to defense. Kentucky needs to kind of protect court at home and win this game tomorrow.
100% agree.
Now,
all right, guys.
Now I will say Alabama, Saturday, you're probably not going to win that game, but you need to win this one, kind of have a little momentum going into Saturday because you never know about a game. Alabama don't play great at home, but it's the game Vanderbilt is a winnable game. So that's all I got to say.
Yeah, Bree and Carr's got to be.
That's the thing, Bill. Carr has not been himself since probably early November. He don't even look like the same player, to be honest. Hopefully he turns it on. We can figure things out. So,
all right, guys. Hopefully, if I'm feeling better and everything else, are not feeling worse. Let's put it that way. We'll be on tomorrow night, do our Kentucky show.
I will say that thank you I just want to say for the prayers for Brad's family. The situation turned out really great. So everything's kind of –
it's my dad, to be honest with you, and he's on the mend. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, and for everybody out there, they're giving 4 to 6 inches of snow tonight. I think Brad's supposed to get 8. Everybody be safe out there tonight. I know there's been a lot of flooding in the state of Kentucky. That's one thing
I'm over it.
With the final buzzer, I kind of wanted to bring that up. Our prayers are with the state of Kentucky right now. There's a lot going on with the flooding and people losing their homes and people having to evacuate. It's been a tough winter, Brad, in terms of flooding, snow. There's just been a lot going on.
People lost their lives in this flooding.
Yeah, it's been a disastrous winter. And I'll be honest, I'm a winter guy, but I'm kind of getting ready for summer. I might stay out there for about 24 hours at this point.
Appreciate
with the way
that, Jerry.
The weather has been, and thank you. So,
I don't talk about it or post much, or I don't think my dad would. He doesn't do that kind of stuff. So but it's he's on the mend now, so I think everything's going to be okay. But it was touch and go for a little while. So
Stephen Decker. He's a really good friend of mine. He loves snow, by the way.
I'm over it.
He actually don't. He hates it. I just exaggerate him about it.
I'm over it. I can tell you that.
Oh, goodness.
And we're supposed to get too much.
Too much. Good day to stay in tomorrow is all I say.
Yeah. All right, guys. We will see you tomorrow night.
Y'all have a good one, y'all.
All right, guys. This has been the Big Fuss Show. This is week 26, season 3, College SportsCast, now part of Stadium Rant.
Can I please have your attention?
There's all a commotion around here.
It's actually very exciting.